You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello, Amanda. Oh, yeah, she's doing well. She's in the reentry program, and of course, she's nervous, a little stressed out. And, haters will be haters. They're coming after her. But for the most part, after a decade of being locked up, I am proud of her because I've seen a lot of people come out and they just can't take it. But with her, she's got a lot of support, and there's people watching out for her, guiding her. And even when she went shopping for the first time, there were some people in there that sensed her nervousness and sensed her confusion and were willing to help. So she's actually complimentary of the people in Spokane. So you have a lot to be proud of with that wonderful woman, and I think she's going to go far. She has a lot of potential, and she's willing to take advice as well as give advice. And, after losing a good friend of mine, I think she'll be a very welcome addition to the team. And when you finally get out, I'm pretty sure too that she'll be able to help you get back on track. And even though you didn't spend as much time as her, you've been in and out a lot. And you need somebody just to pop your head and put you back into reality and wake you up from this silly little dream that you keep having that you can go out and commit all these crimes and do all these illegal drugs and live a happy life. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah, yep, she's getting into a program over there. And I'm not a big fan of a lot of these programs. It's almost as if they don't really dive into the real issue, but it's better than nothing. And it's certainly better than just skipping it. And she'll pick up a lot. And she just needs to be reacquainted with the world. 10 years is a very long time, and a lot changes. And I don't want people to feel overwhelmed. Just take it one step at a time. And so when she calls me, she's excited. She's very thankful. And that's a good sign of success. Oh yeah, she's been giving me some good information. I really want to sit and talk with her and just learn about the stuff that's going on in there, because my big issue with that penal system is that they hide things. And of course, people don't need to know everything. They don't need to know all the privacy stuff. But, I would say we need to look into something like this, and we need to get this thing exposed. And that's what I'm going to work on my next podcast. I'm going to get that information out there, and anything else that people want to share with me. Oh no, she's confirmed some stuff, but I don't think we'll be talking about this specific issue. However, there are some other things she hinted toward, and she's willing to share stuff too. Oh yeah, I know. And the last time you got out of prison, you weren't very open about what was going on in there, but I expect you to be a little more
You have 60 seconds remaining.
open this time. Yeah, that's a good thing too. I know I'm sending my fiance a journal, and she wants to just keep things in there for her daily life. Uh, Prison isn't something you immediately forget, but if you drop little notes in there once in a while about what somebody said, or programs that were
You have
added
30 seconds
or
remaining.
canceled, that could help with the narrative in the future. So I really like journals, and hopefully you'll keep a journal too. Oh yeah. Well, I want to get what's fresh on her mind first. Let's get that out in the open, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Well, thanks for the call, and don't worry about your girlfriend. She's fine, and we'll talk later. Okay. You too. You got it. Goodbye.
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
Well, hello. Welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I'm your host, Joel Willborn. Now, this particular phone call is based, and I'm going to say based, on a true incident that is currently going on with me. And I'm excited about it because when people get out of prison, that's where I can do my most work, and that's what I'm geared to do. Helping them out in prison is tough because I've got to go through that barrier, that brick wall called the Department of Corrections. And when those folks set their mind to something, it's more or less a difficult, not impossible, but it's a difficult task to get anything done. And when I've watched mothers trying to visit their their children from miles away. They'll hop a plane, fly over here, and then the DOC says, "Well, you can't do this, or it didn't complete your application, or something silly." Instead of working with these people are coming in from out of town, especially a long distance. Work with them. But when a parent comes to see her son, I have issue with that. And so when they're having problems, imagine somebody who's a friend, somebody who's a fiance, somebody who's an advocate. They really fight that. When I see incidences like that happen, it shows me that they're hiding something. And so when a person gets out of prison, I can sit down for lunch and talk about something that went on. And I can keep it anonymous or I can share their name. Many of them want to share their name. But this particular incident, I've heard from several people, and the name isn't going to be shared. And the person who gave me the information, I have every reason to believe that it's on the yeah down low. And so I was able to talk to about three other people who were able to verify it, and that's why was doing this particular phone call is because there's people that can verify what was going on in there, and that's what we need. We need more than one person to nod their head on it. And so this one's not really a general audience situation, but it just goes to show some of the influences that people have that work within the DOC or work with the DOC. Like I like to do on this podcast, I live close to a men's prison. And when I go to work, I pass by it. I know some of the stuff that's going on inside that prison. I've been involved in some of the investigations and stuff that go in because of what was shared with me. And there's some high profile people that are locked in there. And so when I see the prison from the outside, I have a general idea of the inner workings. And I like that. I like knowing what's going on in there. And if a person escapes and makes the news, think about the public knowing the background of this person, not having to go on to the internet or to library and look this person up, but actually know because this person and some of the other inmates or associates in there have been well broadcast. Prison officials are less likely to let their guard down if they're being watched. If they're bragging about having a secure facility and you're broadcasting that it's not, hopefully they're going to want to prove you wrong. And that's one of the things I look forward to when I get this information out there. Now, I'll read pretty much what I got. Now, it starts out kind of like in the middle of the story, which is really neat. I like the way this was presented to me. The dog is safe now and has since been adopted. But this needs to be said. Kiara Mansfield, formerly known as Kiara Hall, was caught committing a sexual act involving a dog while participating in the facility's dog program. Despite being a registered sex offender, she was accepted into the program as an auxiliary and seriously abused that privilege. To date, no charges have been filed that we're aware of. She hasn't been moved to segregation. She remains in general population. Meanwhile, her husband continues to serve on the board at headquarters, which presents a clear conflict of interest and raises serious questions about accountability and oversight. There is allegedly physical evidence, and she was caught in the act. yet officials continue to say the investigation is still pending. The right thing would be for her to face consequences, to be removed from the program, charged, and placed in segregation. But right now, nothing is being done. Now, you see that? This woman was caught committing a sexual act on a chocolate lab. What is going on over here? Hello, welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I am your host, Joel Willborn. Now, this phone call is based on an actual situation that I'm going through now, and it involves people that I work with when they get out of prison. Usually, folks recommend assistance from me to their friends, and so they'll say, when you get out, you can call this number, you can visit this person, and this person is coming to my home area, so it's easy for me to go out and mingle with this person and her friends or associates. And that's where I work the best. When I'm working with folks that just got out of prison, I help them to get a job, to meet people that can work on their team, and to pick up resources to help them get on their way. And a lot of times I meet them when they're in prison. So when they get out, they have a friendly voice that can listen to them, talk to them, and give them the advice and positive vibes that they're looking for. I just lost a member of my team, and that was painful because she was very helpful, and she was actually going to work with this person. But now we have something to discuss when we finally get together and meet. And I'm hoping during maybe a lunch date or something, we can discuss things that were going on inside the prison. Now, I live close to a men's prison, and I pass by it on occasion. And I've reported some wrongdoings that's gone in there, and I've had things that reported to me, mainly drug addictions and overdoses and contraband. And so it was neat to report this stuff to law enforcement and have them come over and make an arrest. And so I know there's things that go on in the prison when I pass by it. And I'm hoping that with continued exposure, more things can be brought out. Now, of course, when somebody commits a crime, they're expecting to be anonymous and not get caught. I know I'd hop out of a car and somebody would say, make sure you lock up to keep honest people honest. Some folks, they're not really planning on stealing from you. They didn't target you specifically, but as they're prowling cars, just walking by, grabbing handles and seeing if they're open, they may pop into your car. And that's the one thing we have to be aware of. We need to make sure that we lock up and that we walk in groups, and that if we're pulled over by the police officers, we should be stopping in a well-lit area, preferably with people around or something, so that if these are not legitimate police officers, then you'll have a way to escape. So there's a lot of things we need to do to cut back on crime and being a victim. One of them is learning about the people that are locked up in these prisons that are all around us. Who are the most dangerous people in the prison? If there is an escape, what do they tell you about this person? And what can you do to work hand in hand with the penal system to prevent people who get out of the prison, and this is a legitimate reason getting out, that they're not going to go back? And that's what a lot of us advocates do. When they get out, we want to be there for them so that they don't go back. And this woman who's getting out of prison that I'll be working with, she's got a lot of catching up to do, but she doesn't want to go back. And she doesn't want her friends that were left behind to continue to be abused. And so she's going to share information about what's going on in there. And it could be things that she readily remembers, or it could be through a series of interviews or discussions that things come out. I don't expect to get all the information right up front, but I do like to have open communication with folks on a regular basis so that I can pick up things and develop a story. And sometimes they're even willing to sit down and do an interview with me, and I hope she will do that. I know there's a few people that's in there that have expressed interest in doing that. It's very rare that I talk to folks after they get out. But I do have one interview on my YouTube channel where she'd been released and she's discussing some of the things that she had to face. And anybody that's just getting out of prison, I recommend listening to that video on there and the video about Cammie. But I do have an incident that I believe should be shared. It shows some of the dealings of the DOC, and you can definitely give me your opinion on that case. It says, the dog is safe now and has since been adopted, but this needs to be said. Kiera Mansfield, formerly known as Kiera Hall, was caught committing a sexual act on a chocolate lab dog while participating in the facility's dog program. Despite being a registered sex offender, she was accepted into the program as an auxiliary and seriously abused that privilege. To date, no charges have been filed that we're aware of. She hasn't been moved to segregation. She remains in general population. Meanwhile, her husband continues to serve on the board at headquarters, which presents a clear conflict of interest and raises serious questions about accountability and oversight. There is allegedly physical evidence, and she was caught in the act. Yet officials continue to say the investigation is still pending. The right thing would be for her to face consequences, to be removed from the program, charged, and placed in segregation. But right now, nothing is being done. Now, this story was presented to me anonymously, but it shows that there's something going on in there that the DOC is not sharing. Most importantly, it's a concern to the folks that's in there. Now, when I send emails to the headquarters of the Department of Corrections, I keep hearing how bad I am and how great they are. And they're saying that they're committed to the safety and security of the people that are in there, just like my vulnerability podcast where they're saying they want to protect vulnerable people. I'm not sure how this action is protecting anybody except people that have an influence over there. We don't need folks joining boards or donating money to have an influence that the common folk like us can't have. We should all have equal access to the DOC or any government agency or department. So that's where I come in. Why is it that this woman who was caught in the act is going through this long investigation? If it had been, let's say, my fiance that was caught in the act like that, it would be immediate. And probably a lot of things would have been leaked to the press. But in this particular case, because there's a connection to somebody on board, it's taken a little while. It's being covered up. Fortunately, the people in the prison know. And I've gotten a few confirmations that yes, this did in fact happen. So I feel comfortable broadcasting it. It needs to be out there. You folks need to know what's going on in there. It's not just prison officials abusing the inmates or violating their constitutional rights. There's things where people are gaining access and gaining special privileges that should not be within the Department of Corrections. Now imagine you're planning a crime. Now I'll put this out of our time periods. Let's say you want to rob a train. So you want to gather people to commit this act. You're not going to go into the local synagogue or cathedral, or you're not going to sit outside of an elementary school looking for people that will help you rob this train. Chances are you'll go into the shady part of town. You'll talk to people that had served time in prison. You'll reach out to folks that have been known to commit crimes or friends of friends of friends who've committed a crime. The prison population is more your base. And so when people go into prison, they're locked in with these folks that a lot of them are amateur criminals, but many of them are professional. They've been done it for so many years and they're become so skilled at it. They just made a mistake or they were ratted on and they ended up in the prison. So like I'd heard in one of my interviews, these folks are not any different than the rest of us. They just got caught. And if you want good expert advice, and prison's a good way to get this on committing a crime, that prison population is just full of information. Now, I would often talk to folks during an interview and ask them to give some advice. And of course, it's more like the standard things. Don't do drugs, and don't lie, don't run from the cops, things that mistakes that the criminals make. But they're not going to give the solid evidence on how not to get caught, or how to bulk the system, or how to do a workaround. Those things are usually told in private. So you've got a loved one or a friend or someone that you've just heard about that's locked into a prison, learning all this stuff, hearing all this information. And the Bonnie and Clyde, that's a perfect example. I like to use that. Clyde went into prison relatively amateur, but he came out feeling a lot more confident because he had learned a lot. And look at the type of criminal he became. And he wouldn't have been that way if he wasn't treated so poorly by officials, and if he wasn't locked in there with some of the most notorious criminals there are, learning from them. So if we get this information out and people are doing the job that we pay them to do, things like this poor dog, thank goodness it's okay, because I've heard from another person and it was fine. And well, we think, a psychological aspect of a dog is hard to really measure, but it's nice to see that dog got out and got adopted. But what about the other dogs that's in there? What about this program? Is it in jeopardy? I know one of my friends in there, she enjoys working with the dogs, and she really fought when she got in there to get into that program. And she's not going to abuse it because she really cares about what she's doing. But my goodness, we're allowing this stuff to go on in there. And I think it's because we're just not aware. The more knowledge you have about what's going on inside these prisons, the more likely you are to vote against brand new prisons being built. I know there's a lot of protest that's fighting people that are being locked up for deportation. One hand, I'd like that, because these folks are being carted off and their due process is being stepped on and their rights are being abused. We need a process that we can use for everybody. We need to lock up the people that are guilty, and we need to release the people that are not. So the justice system needs some tweaking, but the penal system, I'm glad this information is coming out, because they're upset about folks that they say are innocent being locked in these facilities, and then they describe the conditions in there. Think about that going on for decades. That's happening in prisons right now. A lot of the stuff they're very upset about are going on in there. And these people, this woman who abused this dog, what's she going to do when she gets out? If you put up a sign, missing, have a picture of your, let's say, chocolate lab, what if that dog is with this woman? So think about those things. Think about how you can help discover what's going on in these prisons that could be down the road from you, and what you can do with other members of the community to keep tabs on it. When you want to know that the dog you adopted came from a prison and was involved in this, maybe you wouldn't, but there's a lot of people who would. And there's a lot of people who are concerned, especially people who are into the protecting animals and pets. They would be a little upset to know that animals from a shelter are being put into a dangerous environment, all because the officials in there are covering up for something that shouldn't be covered up. This should be a harsh punishment for this, so that the people that are locked up in there know that if they did something like that, they would lose a lot of privileges. Shouldn't be losing the privilege to talk to family members, but it should be losing privileges that others are beginning to take for granted, that are enjoying in there, like the dog program, or beekeeping, or the working in the garden, or even watching movies. Well, hopefully this will spark some curiosity in you. You'll look things up. And I highly recommend going to my YouTube channel and just listening to some of the stories about specific prisoners and those that are interviews of prisoners. And I've got a few that I'll be working on to get out. And so they're still coming in. But if you're aware of what's going on, maybe you can reach out to somebody, and maybe there's a skill that you have that you didn't really think could be helpful that could turn out making a huge difference. Perhaps you know some details of this story and can get it publicized and fixed. So go out, have yourself a beautiful day, and make wonderful memories for tomorrow.